One of the things that I know was really hard for me, and I think is really hard for a lot of women, is asking for help. So there was never any expectation that I would be the sole caretaker for these two babies, partially because I think that that's impossible. But even so, I felt a pretty intense amount of failure for not being able to take care of them by myself. Like that was never anyone's expectation for me. It was never my expectation of myself. But still, the fact that I couldn't do this on my own, like I felt bad about that. And I remember having a hard time asking for help or a hard time receiving help. And whether that looked like looking at Carl and telling him I'm tapped out, like it was really hard for me to not have more to give. Like I felt weak for that. Or whether that was like, having my mother-in-law help me with the girls, which she has helped so much and still does. Like I felt like I shouldn't need that. Or then when I remember a specific conversation when we were trying to find and hire a nanny for the girls to help us, that I felt like I should have only the bare minimum amount of help. So like if I had enough nanny hours that I could take a shower and take a nap, that I was being like lazy and indulgent, and also that I was harming my kids by spending time away from them. So can you talk to us about how to ask for help and how not to feel guilty about it? Or I guess I don't think you're going to say we should feel guilty about it. So if we shouldn't, like why?
Yeah, we definitely shouldn't feel guilt about asking for help because we're human. We're not perfect. We don't have the capacity to handle everything at all times of the day, right? How often have I reminded you, Steph, you have multiples, and reminded you to have grace for yourself, right? And reminded you that this is double for you what it is for a mom that's just having one kiddo. Equally as hard, but it looks a little bit different because there's two, right? We've talked about that a lot. And for any of your listeners that are moms of multiples, they'll totally understand and be able to resonate with that.
I'm sending you guys all a hug.
Exactly. Yes. But, as far as asking for help goes, the first thing I think we have to do is extend that grace to ourselves of, it is okay that I cannot do all of this. It is okay that I have to have my basic needs met, like taking a shower and eating and sleeping. It is okay. And if we ask for help in order to meet those needs, guess what? You're setting yourself up for success. It's not setting yourself up for failure. It's setting yourself up for success because you're going to be a much more present mom, a much more present partner, a much more present friend, daughter, granddaughter. The list goes on and on and on and on because you've met those basic needs, right? It's not selfish to take a shower. It's not selfish. It is not selfish at all. It is not selfish to hydrate your body. It is not selfish to feed yourself a nourishing meal. Those are things that we actually have to be doing in order to be performing at capacity. If we're not, then we're not going to be able to do any of the things that our baby wants and needs for us to do, right? Or our partner or ourselves. So let's remember that. Basic needs are not a luxury. Basic needs are basic needs, okay? Yeah.
Just put that on a t-shirt.
Right?
Honestly, I would wear it. Yeah. Basic needs are not a luxury.
Exactly.
They're basic needs.
Yes. And it's never, 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 never selfish of you to ask for help so that you can go take a shower, especially if you haven't taken one in 3 days. That's never selfish. It's just not. Yeah. Yeah. Asking for help, extending grace to yourself first. That's the key, I think. And just reminding yourself, it's okay. We all need help sometimes. And, your partner's going to need to ask you for help on another day. And guess what? That's just the way life is. It's totally normal. It's totally okay.
Yeah. We've talked about this a lot, that there's sort of this idea that having your kids with anyone but you is like second best. Or it's like plan B. But I think that the way that I felt about it, and this is totally subconscious, like I don't actually feel this way at all. I haven't been raised this way. I haven't been given any explicit messages like this. And if I had, I'd be like, that's not true. But I think I still have this like weird gut feeling that like plan A is that my girls are with me, that I'm the one taking care of them at all times.
Yeah.
And then to have them with anybody else is like plan F. Like it's not just second best. It's like way less good, if that makes sense. Is that true?
1000% no. It's not true at all. It's actually really helpful for our kids to be able to be with another adult, appropriate adult, right? One that is safe, a safe, appropriate adult. It's really, really helpful. Why is that helpful? Well, we want to raise really well attached, securely attached humans. That's what we want, that are well-rounded and that have a really beautiful view of all different things of life, right? But a way that we can set our kids up to grow up to be securely attached individuals is by allowing them the opportunity to be with other people that are taking care of them. So having a nanny take care of them, sending them to daycare, sending them to school, all of these things are really appropriate for their emotional development.
Talk to me about, because we've talked about this a lot too, talk to me about secure attachment. What is it? Because it would seem like for a kid to be really attached, that means that they are like always on your hip. Like, but that's not what we're talking about. That's not the kind of attachment.
Exactly right. No. We actually don't want our kids to always be attached to our hips and to start crying the minute that we put them down or that dad takes them or grandma takes them, right? Sometimes it's developmentally appropriate. Like, let's say that. Let's normalize that.
Looking at you, Annie and Quinn, right now.
They love their mama so much.
They really
That's appropriate. It's totally appropriate. We're going to go through cycles where they need dad or they need mom or they can't leave each other's side. That's normal. It's okay. I'm talking about if it is that way for every single time that you go to put them down and they start screaming, then we want to look at some things that maybe we need to tweak within the parent-child relationship. It doesn't mean that you're loving your kid wrong or anything like that. It's just maybe we need to really focus on that attachment piece. So what does it mean to be securely attached? It means that mom's going to leave their room, if there's an adult there, dad or grandma or a friend or a nanny, whatever. Mom's going to leave the room. Your kid's going to be like, it's going to notice, mom left. Okay, well, I'm going to keep playing with my blocks. And then mom comes back. Oh, hey, mom, look what I did while you were gone. That's a securely attached kid. One that's not breaking down every time that mom leaves the room. And once again, there are seasons where that's 100% developmentally appropriate. But we don't want that to be happening every single time. What we really want our kids to know is somebody that loves me is going to go away, but they're going to come back. So I don't need to worry about where did they go? Where did they go? Are they coming back? I don't need to be anxious about that.
Yeah. Okay. I really love that. Yeah. The girls are totally in it. They're coming out of it a little bit, but they're in a moment where, or the last, I would say like month or so, where they just want to be with me. But it is starting to fade a little bit, and they're remembering how much they love Carl, and that, and really, they usually, if we drop them off someplace where they, with their grandparents, or if they're with a nanny, they cry when I leave, but then they get over it pretty quickly and start playing with their blocks. So
exactly, yeah, and that's very, very common, and that's what we want to see.
Like overall, it's a good thing for our kids to be taken care of by different safe adults, not just by us.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It absolutely is. And I mean, your girls, I know your girls, I don't know your listeners' kids, and they're just such a delight. Why would you not want to share that delight with other people, with your nanny, with their grandparents, with your friends, right? That's another way to look at it. You're sharing your kid who brings so much joy to your life and is really precious and does all of these cute, lovely little things. You're sharing that with somebody else, and that's going to bring joy to somebody else's life.
Yeah. It is cool because I feel like they learn so many things and so many different things from the different adults that they have in their lives. And it's like when one person is tapped out, or like if they were with me and Carl all day, of like, we both still have to work, like at least one of the adults in your house has to work in order for you guys to like eat, which means that they have a lot on their plate, which means they're not really the most fun to be around for a kid. Like answering emails isn't fun for me, let alone for my girls. And so it's so fun to hear about all the things that they are doing at Carl's parents' house, or the things that they're doing with their nannies, or to get pictures of what they're up to. And they're having such a better time, honestly, than they would if they were with me all day.
Yeah. Hearing their little squeals in the background while you are checking your email, right? That's just really darling.
Yes.
It's so fun. It's a moment of joy in your day.
Yep. So, speaking of getting work done, one of the things that we've talked about a lot is what it looks like to be a working parent. And can you talk to us a little bit about just really anything that you have for parents as they're either headed back to work for the first time after having their baby, or anything you have for just working parents in general? I know that it's a lot to have on your plate all at once, especially if you're like, you already had a full plate and then you have a baby and now you have like 4 full plates that you're trying to balance.
Right. Yeah. So 2 things come to mind here. One is some women and some dads are really excited to get back to work, and that is fantastic. So let's celebrate that. Not everybody has this story of, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to leave my babies and go back to work, and I don't want to. I just want to stay at home all day. If that's your story, that's great. That's fantastic. But let's remember that's not everybody's story. And so for a lot of women, like I said, it's really exciting for them to be able to get back into their career, get back into the workforce. Now, for those women and those men that it's maybe a little bit harder for them, that's okay. Feel your feelings. That's the first thing I like to say. It's hard. Sure. Yeah, you're going to miss your kid. Absolutely. And that's okay. Let's talk about those feelings. Let's give you the space that you need to just really sit in your sadness or your anxiety or whatever it is that you're feeling in that moment. Odds are it's a lot of things. But let's give you some space to sit in that and feel those things and recognize this is normal. It's appropriate. It means that you really love your kid, which is really what we want to hear at the end of the day, right? And it's okay to be sad. From there, we still have to go do the thing. You're dropping your kid off at the nanny or at daycare for the first time. One thing that I really like to tell my clients is like, plan something you can look forward to right after that. So maybe it's you get yourself a special latte from Starbucks, or you go to your favorite local bakery and pick up your favorite treat, right? Or maybe it's not food related at all. Maybe you go to a yoga practice afterwards, but just save something that you can have to look forward to right after that drop off. The odds are it's going to be really challenging. If you're already not looking forward to going back to work and then you're having to take your baby to nanny, daycare, grandparents, whoever's going to be responsible for them, that's a hard transition. So if we have something to look forward to on the other side of that, it's not going to negate all of the sadness or whatever it is you're feeling, but it is going to be just a little dopamine hit is what it is. Yeah. Just a little pick me up. Yeah. And then from there, just give yourself time to get into rhythms, getting into what's helpful and not helpful as far as logistically speaking. Maybe the mornings are super chaotic. So, okay, well, let's look at your evening. What can we do at night to better prepare you to have a smooth transition in the morning? Anything that you can do to extend that kind of kindness to yourself, to make however the morning needs to go, to make that a little bit easier, that's really what we need to focus on from there. After we've given you the space to let you feel your feelings and acknowledge whatever's going on emotionally, okay, well, now let's look at logistics here. What needs to happen to set you up for success, to do the drop off and then to get to work?
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I really like that. One of the things, and I've thought about this in like a whole bunch of different seasons of life, but this is something I think about a lot when it comes to the girls and when it comes to work, is I think that we can either, like, there's a world in which every time I go to work, I'm thinking about the babies. And then every time I'm with the babies, I'm thinking about work. Yes. And it feels like that, like, no matter what's happening in life, my physical body is in a place and my mind is in a place. And it feels like in that scenario, my mind and my physical body are always disconnected. And so it means I'm never mentally present where I physically am. Something that I've tried to do in seasons of life, and I mean, this is so much of what like my Love Your Single Life course is about, is try to be mentally and emotionally and spiritually and everything present where like my actual body is. Yeah. Because there will be a time to be in another place also. And so when I'm with the girls, I really, really try to just be there, to like savor it, to be there with them, to play with them, to just have my mind and my body in the same place and to give them the best of what I have. And then when I'm at work, trying to do the same with my work, because I just feel like it doesn't benefit anybody for them to get my body, but not my mind. And so I don't know if that's helpful for anybody, but that's just sort of a discipline that I've been trying to cultivate for years now, of just mentally being where my body is. And it just feels so much better to know, like, if I miss the girls during my work day, then I can go, okay, well, I'm going to see them tonight. And when I see them, I'll really be there with them. Or, you know what, like, I need to get this done tomorrow, but I have a block of time scheduled to do this thing. And when I'm there, like, I'm really going to be thinking about it. I'll really be just totally present there. So yeah, I don't know if anyone else can resonate with that, but that's been really helpful to me.
Mindfulness. Yeah, that's fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
The practice of mindfulness, there's a reason why it's kind of a buzzword. It's because it works. It's really important and it works.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. I don't think I put that together. That's what that is.
Yeah.
You're totally right. So something I know a lot of women feel is guilt. I think it's just this really common and really accepted. It's almost like, here's your like free gift with purchase. It's like, here's your baby and here's the guilt that will automatically come with them. Talk to me about guilt. Like, how do we stop feeling like we're not doing enough, being around enough? Or like, I mean, I just feel like, how do we find some peace from that guilt?
Yeah. I think that's a lifelong for everyone, regardless if it's mom guilt, dad guilt, or just in general guilt. It's a lifelong thing to navigate. And one thing that I like to really distinguish two things, shame versus guilt. Are we feeling guilt or are we feeling shame? Shame tells us that we are a bad person. Guilt tells us that, oh, we've done something bad. Are we feeling shame? If you're feeling shame for leaving your kid to go to work or to go meet up with a girlfriend for coffee, then that we actually need to look at a little bit more in detail. That's when someone such as myself, another therapist, would be really, really helpful to like unpack that a little bit, because that's telling me that there's some other things going on internally and mentally that are not awesome, and that you deserve some relief from that. But with guilt, it tells us that, oh, you're doing something bad. You need to rethink this behavior right here. And what's tricky about that is it's not bad to leave your kid. In some scenarios, maybe, but for the most part, right? It's not bad to leave your kid. You're doing them a favor. You're doing yourself a favor, so that when you finally do come back together at the end of the day or at the end of the afternoon or whatever, you're enjoying each other. You're able to be fully present with each other. Mom guilt's just a thing that we're going to have to navigate. And there's no completely eliminating it. It's all about, okay, I'm feeling this way. Let me acknowledge right now I'm feeling guilt. Why do I feel guilt? Well, I'm feeling guilt because I've missed my kid a lot this week, and I've been spending a lot more hours at work this week, and I'm feeling really sad about that. Okay, well, instead of guilt, like, let's sit in that sadness, right? Let's sit in that for a minute, and let's just acknowledge, I really miss my kid, and I really want to just play with my kid for the afternoon. Okay, well, maybe can we schedule a time next week for you to take the afternoon off of work, and you pick your kid up early from school or daycare, and then just go have ice cream, go to the playground, go sit at home and snuggle up under a blanket and read stories, right? So let's look at why we're feeling the guilt. And then from there, do whatever we need to do to kind of address that in a more specific way. Does that make sense?
Yes. I like that so much, because it's not just letting your feelings run the show. It's like having them like almost like account for themselves. So I think when we think of mom guilt, I think most of the time it's shame, and it's this shame that says that we're not a good mom or that we're not enough. And to just like accept that that's a thing is crazy, because that's not a thing. It's not true at all. And it shouldn't be allowed to like walk around like it is true. So stopping it and going, hey, like, what is actually happening here? And then, yeah, there is sadness when you miss your kids, or sadness when you don't get to be or do the things that you want to be or do for your kids. But also like responding to that instead of just believing the first thoughts that you're failing or you're not good enough.
Yeah.
Like
the first thought is important. The first thought is always important. So let's always acknowledge that. But then we get to decide from there, what am I going to do with this thought? Am I going to sit in it? Am I going to dwell in it? Am I going to stew in it? Or I can acknowledge it and I can say, okay, yeah, I feel guilt, or I feel sad, or I feel really frustrated with myself because I was really short-tempered with my kid. Okay, well, what are we going to do to rectify that? Then we get to decide, what do we do with that emotion? So let's not discount that first thought or that first emotion, and let's not label that as bad. It's not. It's an automated thing that is just going to happen.
But it's what we do with it next.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What do we do next? That's the thing that really we want to focus in on.
Yeah, Okay. Oh, this is like totally tied to this, but one of the things that I've learned from you that has been so helpful is I think I'm gonna call it the wrong thing, but like the repair cycle and
Yeah.
how
Okay.
like I feel like there's this feeling that you have to be perfect. That if you like, what if you do it? You snap at your kids and you feel really bad about it, and you feel like, oh my gosh, have I ruined everything because I was frustrated and hungry and snapped at my kids?
Mm-hmm.
But you've talked to me about something about like as long as you can get through the repair of it,
Mm-hmm.
that is really good. Can you talk to us
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah. So let's just go with this example of you're really frustrated and you snapped at your kid. Okay, it happened. Ugh, it feels terrible that it happened. And also, you're human. You have your own range of emotion outside of your kid, right? And you're never going to be the perfect parent. Okay, so what are we going to do about that? We can sit in that. We can stew. We can ruminate. Oh my gosh, I'm the worst mom ever. I can't believe I snapped at my kid when all that he or she was doing was asking me for a hug. We can sit and stew in that, or we can do an action. We can go to our kid and we can say, I'm so sorry. Mama was really frustrated in that moment. I would love to give you a hug because I love you. I see you and you're important to me. And also, mama sometimes has really big feelings, just like you have really big feelings. That's the repair, right? And so what is that doing? It's repairing that relationship with your kid, or not relationship, but just the little wounding that's happened. That's a more appropriate way to say that. It's repairing that little wounding that's happening. And also it's teaching your kid a really valuable life skill of, guess what? I'm going to mess up sometimes, but that's okay. Because if it's a safe, secure relationship, I can go back to that person and I can say, hey, I'm really sorry that I did this thing that hurt you. Can I offer you that apology and then receive forgiveness on the other end of that, right? So it's important. It's not like, let's dismiss and act like this didn't happen and then everybody will get over it. No, that's going to cause more harm down the road. Let's address it head on and just admit, you know what? I didn't present my best to you and I'm really sorry for that. Can you forgive me for that? That's the actual repair. That's also aiding into the that attachment piece that we were talking about earlier. That's another thing that really helps build that stable, solid, secure attachment style.
And that's like even more like I might not be even this might not be true the way I'm saying it, but like that's a beneficial thing. That's not second best to being a perfect parent,
Oh,
right?
correct. That's correct. Yeah. For so many reasons, you're being honest with your kid of, I have faults and I have moments where I'm not going to be perfect. And also, I'm really sorry when I hurt your feelings. That is never my intent to hurt your feelings because I love you deeply.
Yeah. Because
Yeah,
well, and your kid's not going to get to be a perfect person either. And so if they
exactly.
think that that's like the expectation, then that's a really hard thing to live up to instead of being like, hey, when you're
100%.
imperfect, because you will be, here's how you handle it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
I like
That's
that.
such a great point, Steph. Yeah.
That took a lot of pressure off of me. I really,
Good.
I think about that a lot, that it's like, it's
Yeah.
important to show the repair. It's important to get to the repair, but
Mm-hmm.
you haven't like messed up everything.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so this is, I have just a couple other things I want to touch on. One of the things that was really challenging for me that I know we talked through a lot is that there are so many decisions to be made with babies. And it seems like everyone has very strong opinions about what the right thing to do is. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
like bottles or breastfeeding or swaddling or what kind of toys they play with or how they sleep or where they sleep or sleep training, whatever. How do we and it is so wild because everyone is absolutely positive that their way is the only right way. Like if you Google it, you will find people on either side being like, you're going to damage your kids if you do it any way
Mm-hmm.
other than mine.
Mm-hmm.
How do we wade through some of that noise and figure
Yeah.
out what's right to do for our
Mm-hmm.
family?
Absolutely. So, a couple of things logistically. Talk to your pediatrician. There, you have your pediatrician for a reason. If you don't have a great relationship with your pediatrician, I suggest go interview another one and find one that you have a good relationship with. The other thing is that maybe is probably should be the first step is just being on the same page with your partner and deciding like what's important to us to make sure that we have a healthy, well-attached kid that's going to grow up to be a healthy, well-attached adult, right? Get on the same page with your partner is that. Then, if you have questions, your first person usually should be your pediatrician if it is something to do with their well being. If it's something to do with their spiritual development, maybe go to your pastor, right? But another thing that we've talked about is limiting your gurus, which I learned that. I've got to get credit where credit is due from sweet Emily P. Freeman. That's where I learned this concept of limiting your gurus. So, okay, you know, you've got on the same page with your partner. This is what's important to us for our child and our family unit. Okay, now we've got important people such as our pastors, such as our pediatrician, teachers, whoever else you feel is important to speak into whatever the value system is, right? You're going to go to them. They're going to be like your first layer. Now let's talk about your social media feed. You don't need to follow every breastfeeding account. You don't need to follow every formula feeding account. You don't need to follow every diaper account. Like, you just pick a handful of people that you want to speak into your social media feed, right? You don't need all the voices. As an Enneagram 9, too many voices, it gets super confusing for me. And so the best thing that I can do for myself is to limit, okay, I've got 5 people, 5 influencer type people that I'm going to follow on my Instagram, social media, whatever account. I'm going to stick to those 5. If at some point those 5 people are no longer meeting my needs, okay, well, I'm just going to unfollow them. Not because they're a bad person, but they're just not meeting my needs at this point. And then I'll either replace them or not replace them. And that's great. Limiting your gurus makes a massive, massive, massive difference.
I love that so much. I mean, Carl and I both were like anxiety Googling in the middle of the night for months and months and months, and like just having so many competing voices about how we should handle all these different things, and everyone said something different. And so I remember when you said that, like you told me, you're like, Steph, you need to limit your gurus. Carl and I sat down and figured out like what was the resource we were going to like lean into when it came to sleep? What was the resource we were going to lean into when it came to feeding them? You know, like, and then when we had a question about naps or something else, we would look on their website, because it's like everyone has the same information, but everyone comes at it from a different lens. And so we just had to pick like what lens we felt good about. And then that was our resource. And I think about that in so many corners of my life now, just clearing out some of the noise, deciding who I'm going to listen to. And it just makes it so much easier, because really everyone has an opinion.
Yes. The thing I want to say here is every baby is different. And so every baby is going to respond to a certain method differently than another baby will. And you know your baby better than anybody else will ever know your baby. And so if you want to do Moms on Call, great. And you know that's going to work well for your kid, that is fantastic. If you want to try a different method, that's also fine. You get to decide. I think that's the other important thing for parents to remember is this is your kid. You're in charge of this kid. Like, you've been entrusted with the well-being of this kid. You know this baby better than anybody else will know this baby. Trust your instinct here. That instinct is going to develop. The more you know your baby, it's going to develop. It's going to kick in. Trust that you're going to pick out the best, most perfect thing for your baby.
I really like that. And I like the idea too of talking to your partner first and figuring out kind of what your value system is. Like what is the set of circumstances you're working within? Because some things like if you both work outside the home full time, then you like physically breastfeeding your baby around the clock is not going to work, because you won't physically be in your house. And so it's like at that point you need to decide which is more important, like which is more necessary. Do you want to quit your job so that you can breastfeed around the clock, or is pumping going to work? So in which case, or formula, like in which case, that's kind of how you make decisions. You like something has to give. I think, I don't know if this is helpful for anybody else, but for us, it felt like there are a lot of people who say like, you can't have your kids on a schedule. Like you shouldn't have your kids on a schedule, or that's, you need to feed them whenever they like sort of ask for it, or like feed on demand. And for us, we had to figure out like what was more important, like my breastfeeding journey, or which is something we really, gave our best shot, or getting some sleep. And part of that was having the twins on the same schedule, because that's something that every twin parent says, like, and every resource ever is like, keep your twins on the same schedule. And so that was something that we had to kind of figure out. And ultimately, them staying on the same schedule and all of us getting some sleep trumped, really, because it had to, being able to feed them on demand. And so like my breastfeeding didn't go maybe as well as it could have otherwise, but the alternative wasn't sustainable. Like we couldn't, none of us would have made it through if we continued getting as little sleep as we did. So just figuring out like what is What set of circumstances are you working with? What's really important to you, and what's important to you enough that you can sacrifice some other things? And then finding a couple good resources to help you with that.
Yes, exactly.
Speaking of finding people to speak into your life, I want to kind of finish out by talking about therapy.
Yeah.
I don't know how many women think of their first few months as a parent as a time to seek therapy, but I think more of us should. So tell me, like, why, I'd love to hear from you why therapy is so powerful just in general, and then why it's so powerful in this season of life specifically.
Yeah. I believe that therapy is sacred. Regardless of your belief system, it's still sacred. You get this beautiful opportunity to come and bare your soul and talk through your deepest traumas, or even just, I'm having a really hard time at work and I just really need a safe space to go talk about it. It's really sacred and it's really valuable. You're getting healing. You're getting a change in perspective, right? And those are always, always really helpful things. And they're always really beautiful things. With motherhood, or any time within perinatal in general, so whether it's conception, pregnancy, or postpartum, any part of that, infertility, whatever it is, that's so valuable because we have all of these messages thrown at us of it should look this way, you need to do it this way, follow this routine, don't do this routine, right? And it is overwhelming and it's confusing and it can be scary and it can just be full of anxiety and it can be full of sadness. And to have that space, you can go 1 hour a week or every 2 weeks or once a month, whatever that looks like for you, just to be able to talk things out without fear of judgment, without fear of my therapist is going to go and tell all of her friends my deepest, darkest secrets or shame me for feeling a certain way. None of that's going to happen in the therapy space. And we all deserve that. We all deserve that time to be able to just dump it all out, to unwind a little bit, talk about what's going on in our heads and in our hearts and spiritually, even talk about that and have some wisdom poured into us, or just have that empathy of a person just sitting there with you and whatever the messiness is that you're bringing into the therapy space. You know, I think even more specifically with motherhood, there's just so much changing at one time. You know, we've talked about the identity shift. We've talked about launching into a new life cycle, the physical demands on your body. We've talked about all of that. And gosh, what a more needed, like there's no more other time, there's no time that's greater in a woman's life and so necessary to have somebody come and navigate that alongside of them, right? And to say to them, hey, I see you in this really hard thing. I see you. You matter in this. What's going on inside of you? Let's talk about this really hard thing. Let's figure it out together. How can I help you? How can I support you? I'm not judging you. You're having this really scary thought that's going on in your head about your kid, about them being hurt, about something happening to them. Yeah, that's really scary. And so that happens a lot. Let's talk through this. How can we help you through this? There's nothing greater on this side, like on the clinician side, to be able to sit with a woman in that time of just confusion, hardness, messiness, whatever it is. It's just such a joy. But then on the receiving end of that, to be known and be seen by a person, even if they don't know you at all outside of therapy, right? But just to like have somebody acknowledge, this is really hard and this is really messy and I'm so sorry you're going through this. And then offer like help navigating this. There's something that's just so beautiful about that. And it's just, I think for me, it's a beautiful picture of the gospel in action that for me, I would just be really sad if more women did not take that opportunity, or if I wasn't able to offer that service to women. Does it make sense at all what I'm saying?
Totally.
Saying
I love
a lot
that
of words.
so much.
Yeah.
No, it's so good. And I think like, especially this season of life, like Carl is one of my go-to people to talk through things. But he was just as tired and just as stressed and just as like in the thick of it as I was. And so he like he was in a good sounding board in that season. He needed a sounding board just as much as I did. And so having someone like outside of the situation, and then also, you know, one of the things like that we've talked about is when you're in a therapeutic relationship, that is such a unique relationship because you're not friends. Like you may get along, you may really like each other, but you're not friends. So that means that I don't need to impress you. It means I don't need to worry about what you think about me. It means if we have a conflict or if I say something that is really, messy to you, it's not going to jeopardize my whole social circle or my family or, it's just this really, really safe space with a lot of freedom to, just be as messy as you need to be and to like kind of put some things back together.
Yeah. Remember, the therapy space is about you. It's not about your clinician. Like no part of it is about your clinician. This is all about you. And it's a great place to work out conflict. It's a great place where, you said a thing that didn't really sit well with me, and I need to bring that to the table and let's talk that out. Great, let's do it. And you're learning this really valuable skill of how to appropriately approach conflict, right? It doesn't have to be this big blown out thing. It's just hey, this thing didn't sit well. Can we talk about it? You're learning that.
Yeah.
And I think that's really beautiful.
It's a safe place to practice it. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. And it's a safe place to even practice. So, okay, let's say you are having a lot of messy thoughts and a lot of messy feelings and you want to communicate that to your partner, but you feel shame about getting it out, or you're just not quite sure of how to get it out. Great. Bring it to the therapy space. Let's practice that. How can I help you better say this to your partner? And then you get to go back to your partner and say, hey, I talked about this in therapy and I want to talk about it with you.
Yeah. This is what for me, one of the most helpful things is getting to figure out, this is what I actually am trying to say. Because a lot of times when you're in the thick of something, whether it's an interpersonal conflict with that person or just something messy in your head, it's like the word salad that comes out of my mouth in trying to figure out what I'm trying to say, like sometimes causes more damage than like actually effectively communicate. So it's like, then we're talking about this thing I didn't even mean to talk about because I said it in a way that I didn't necessarily mean. And so getting to just actually figure out what you're trying to say before you say it is so helpful. So I want to ask you, just as one of the last things, how do we know if we've found the right therapist? Because I think that like it's awkward at first. And I think, getting ourselves to therapy is one thing, but staying and knowing if like this is a good fit for you is a totally different one. So tell me about that.
Let me actually flip it on you a little bit. How did you know that it was the right therapist? I'm not the only therapist that you've ever had. And so tell me, how did you know it was a good fit?
I think there were certain things I was looking for. Like I wanted to see a female. I wanted to, one of the things that I was really looking for was someone who like has the same like faith foundation as I do. And I remember I wrote back to you when we first connected, and I wrote back thinking that I was talking to like the coordinator. And I said, listen, I forgot to say this, but I'm really looking for someone who like shares my same faith. And you wrote me back and you're like, hey, so I'm actually the therapist you've been connected with, but I do. And so that's but that's been such a great thing because then that's something that we can talk about together is like circling back to like kind of the foundation of our, like, we're like speaking the same language, which is really, really important. And I think one of the other things that was really powerful with you is that, when you're talking to someone and you say something and then they repeat back what they heard, like just in a conversation, and you go, yeah, that's not what I meant. Or that's okay. So that's not what I was saying, but interesting that you heard that. You have always been the opposite of that, where I'll say something and you'll say, so it's kind of like this. And I go, exactly that. And so I just have always felt really understood by you. And then I think I've always felt really safe. Like I can truly bring my whole self to the table and it's never too much. It's never too messy. I've never felt shamed or judged or embarrassed or anything like that. And then I've also felt really safe in terms of confidentiality, which is like especially reinforced by the fact that we jumped through a lot of hoops to have this conversation today. That you're like, we need to really think through this, really talk through this, really talk about how this is going to work, really, sign papers to make sure that that even this conversation is like had in a way that makes me feel really safe and in a way that makes our future sessions together like safe also.
Absolutely.
So I think that would be it.
Yeah. First of all, I'm so glad that you feel that way about our relationship. I feel similarly. It's just so you know, like I think we hit the jackpot with our therapeutic relationship. So, but I think all the things that you said, like let's build off of that. What is important to you? Asking yourself those questions. For some people, gender of their therapist is a very big thing. Okay, great. Well, then specify that when you are reaching out to, if you're going through the type of practice like Ready Nest is, where we've got a whole bunch of therapists. Or there's a great resource called Psychology Today where you can find all the therapists in your area and like get really specific in your search about, okay, are they male or female? What are they focusing on? All of those types of things. So just really evaluating what is important to me. What do I want to get out of this? And then from there, it really is a relational thing. It's not unlike dating or building a new friendship with somebody. You gotta give it a little bit. And sometimes right off the bat, oh, this is not a great fit, or oh, this is a good fit. And this, I'll say again, this is not about your clinician. If it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. And that doesn't mean that the therapist that you're working with is bad. It just means that it's just not the right fit. And that's okay. Something I tell my clients often is, if you don't think that you're going to get what you need from me, that's A-okay, because I have a whole bunch of other qualified colleagues on this team, and we're going to get you with the right person. So just know that if you are working with someone such as myself, who has a team of other therapists that works alongside of her or him, be vocal about, hey, this isn't quite right for me. And it'll be fine. We'll get you with who you need to be, to who you need to be with. So making sure you feel safe, making sure you feel heard, all the things that you mentioned, those are all very important things. And it does take some self-reflection after a session or two, just to be like, is this a good fit for me? And, I operate out of my gut. And so for me, I'm usually like, what's your gut telling you? What's the gut feeling here? Does this feel instinctually good to you? Then go with it, write it out, and see what happens from there.
Yeah, I really like that. Do you have any would you mind praying for us? Just the women who are listening, especially the women who are like just in the thick of it with a new baby.
I would love that. I would absolutely love that. Okay. Yeah. Let's go to God. Let's do it. Oh, dear Jesus. I am just so grateful that we get to meet here in this space, all of us here together. And I pray for all of the listeners. And I pray especially for these new mamas that are really just sitting in the messiness of parenthood. And maybe they're dealing with some postpartum depression. Maybe they're dealing with some postpartum anxiety, or maybe it's just hard and they just need some space to talk. Lord, I pray specifically for them. And I just pray, Lord, that they just feel your presence. I pray that they feel your love, and that they feel seen by you, and that they feel known by you. But Lord, I also ask that you would just send the Holy Spirit to them and just nudge them and direct them in the way of help. Whether it's a pastor, whether it's a therapist such as myself, whether it's their pediatrician, their OB, whoever it is, Lord, just nudge them in the way that they need to go. Let them know that they're not alone, that there are resources available to them. Help friends reach out to them, whatever that needs to be, whatever that needs to look like, Lord. I just pray for them specifically, that you would just cover them with all the resources that they need, and with all the support that they need, with the courage that they need. And Lord, I just feel grateful for Steph. I feel grateful for the way that she is just so willing to share parts of her story with her audience, with her listeners, with her friends, just to help normalize that this is normal for this to feel really hard and really messy. And it's also really normal for it to feel fantastic and really fun. All of it's normal. I celebrate the fact that she is using this beautiful platform that you've given her, just to really promote that all the things with motherhood are hard, and they're all messy, and they're all beautiful simultaneously, and that there's help available, Lord. I celebrate that. I celebrate her. And Lord, I pray for the partners of these moms that are going through a really hard time. And I just pray, Lord, that you give them the strength that they need. You would give them the insight that they need, the readiness to just be really there to jump in into action and to get their partner the help that they need, or to that nudge that they need, Lord. I'm just so grateful that you're here with us. I'm so grateful that you have allowed all of these women to be moms to their sweet little babies, that are on their way, sweet little babies that are in heaven, their sweet little babies that are in their arms already, Lord. I'm just so grateful for that. All of these women get the opportunity to be moms. We celebrate them, Lord. We love them, and we are grateful for them. And more importantly, Lord, we are grateful for you. We are grateful for the way that you love us. We're grateful for the way that you celebrate us and that you support us. And Jesus, I just pray all of these things in your most precious name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Christen.
You're so welcome, Steph.